Tonight with Richard Dean.
And a very warm welcome back to the show.
Tonight with Jumeirah Hotels and Resorts. More than 80 imaginative restaurants and bars in Dubai. Jumeirah, stay different.
We are talking human resources now, and I'm delighted to be joined on the line from Canada by the human resources guru, Chester Elton. Chester, many, many thanks indeed for joining us. Great talking to you.
Oh, delighted to be on the show. Thanks for asking.
Now, Chester, you have sold more than 500,000 books worldwide. You're a consultant to some of the world's biggest firms, including Walmart and Avis. And indeed, I had the pleasure of hearing you speak in Dubai at Leaders in Dubai just a few months ago. And the great news is that you're back in Dubai next month at the Middle East HR Summit. And Chester, here's my question. You talk a lot about the need for what you call your carrot principle. You need to appreciate your staff. You need to engage your staff and communicate with them. And I'm guessing this is becoming much more relevant as the global economy, the regional economy, picks itself up out of recession and the war for talent begins again in earnest, doesn't it?
Absolutely. First off, I'm delighted that I had the chance to speak at Leaders in Dubai, and I love Dubai, by the way. Wonderful place to visit and to conference. I do want to make one little slight correction, Richard. We actually passed over 1 million books sold this year, and so we're very proud of that, and they are available at fine bookstores everywhere. So tell your leaders or your listeners to buy as many as possible. We always say, the more books you buy, the more books you'll own. So, but you're exactly right, and your question is a very good one about as the economy recovers, how do we retain our top talent? Because we found through our research, and everything we do is very much nestled in surveys and case studies, Intuitively, we know we should treat each other well. We should say thank you. It's something our mothers and fathers taught us when we were very young. But the data really does bear out that people that are appreciated, and that develop what we call this carrot culture, or culture of appreciation, are more engaged in their work, they're more productive. Now, the other thing that we've learned, Richard, which I think is to your point, is employees treat you in good times the same way you treated them in bad times. So if you've had a lot of retrenchment, if you've had a lot of downsizing and so on, and you have left those niceties off the table, your chances of retaining your talent are probably pretty small. Whereas companies that really understand the power of appreciation have a much better chance of holding on to that top talent as the economy recovers. Does that make sense?
It does make perfect sense, and we'll get on to what you call your carrot culture, building a carrot culture so that this thing works in a second. Very briefly, though, there will be people driving home thinking that's all very touchy-feely and nice, but what is the science and maths behind this that supports the fact that actually appreciating your staff does lead to improved bottom line?
Well, thanks for asking, because, as Adrian Gostick, my co-author, and I, as we started to write books, we started first off to write books about great stories of great companies. And people would say, okay, that's a very touching story. Do you have the data? So then we went in and we delved into over 200,000 surveys of employees' attitudes towards appreciation in the workplace. We engaged Towers Watson, they used to be called Towers Perrin, now Towers Watson, in a study in 13 different countries around the world, of which Dubai was one. So that we have very relevant data for your specific part of the world. And we asked the question, does appreciation, does this, recognition, does it affect engagement of employees? Now, Towers Watson has a huge normative database, literally millions and millions of surveys around the world that measure engagement. Now, the reason engagement is important is because in their studies, engaged companies had much better operating margins. In other words, much better bottom lines than disengaged companies. In fact, the numbers are quite startling. Engaged companies have a positive operating margin of plus 19, disengaged a minus 36. So, as we wrote the carrot principle and as we started to delve into other works, we always wanted to take a look and say, it's nice to feel good about how you treat people, but does it really affect your bottom line? Does it make your company a little better today than it was yesterday? And we were very gratified as we looked at all these different surveys across all these different cultures that absolutely engagement being a key trigger of profitability, it had a huge impact. In fact, it was the number one driver of engagement in the workplace. Appreciation. Fascinating.
So we've only got about 4 minutes left, Chester. How do we achieve this? If there are managers and business owners and business leaders driving home tonight listening to this thinking, okay, that's great, I buy into the idea that engagement works. How do you do it? How do you build what you yourself call, Chester, the carrot culture?
Well, excellent question. And if there's one thing that your listeners take away from this brief interview is frequent, specific, and timely. That great recognition is frequent. We communicate through recognition. It has a very powerful impact on people in communicating what it is you value most. So be frequent. If you're a business owner and you want extraordinary customer service, be sure to talk about it a lot. Reward it a lot. If it's on-time delivery, if it's zero defects, that's the way you communicate. Now, that's the frequency. But specificity is so important. General praise has no impact on people. Don't, leave this interview and go into work and say, hey, great job, great job. No, you rock. No, you rock. You see what I'm saying? Specificity. I want great customer service. That's what I talk about. That's what I reward. And then lastly, do it in a timely way. Don't wait till the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the month. If you see someone doing some behavior you want repeated, reward it right now, because the communication on that is that I do important things now. I don't put it off. Leaders say I don't have time, but I always say if someone messes up, if someone makes a mistake, do you have time for them then? So absolutely. I'm a problem solver. I'm on it, Well, change your mindset. Find people doing things right. Reward them in a frequent, specific, and timely way, and you'll be well on your way to your own carrot culture.
Chester, give us a couple of examples of where this has worked and where you've seen it work, companies you've consulted with and some of the so on and so forth, and some of the results that people can get, real tangible case studies of how this works.
Oh, absolutely. Pepsi, a wonderful worldwide brand. We've done a lot of work with Pepsi in and around this, customer service. They've got all these drivers that stop in at these little bodegas and they drop off their product and they build relationships. Well, there's a big difference between a driver that jumps off the truck, throws the cans of soda and the bottles of water, whatever it is, on the doorstep and says, sign here, I got another delivery, to those that really understand the power of the brand and that building relationships is what keeps people coming back to your company again and again. They've developed wonderful recognition programs at Pepsi, from the very formal, to the Employee of the Year and Employee of the Month and Safe Driver and so on, to the very informal, where they have little thank you notes, little handwritten notes that they write each other and leave them on their dashboards or leave them on their desks. And over the last 2 years, and they are also a client of Towers Watson, they've seen their engagement scores, their profitability, their customer retention jump literally by leaps and bounds. In fact, we're in the midst of writing a wonderful white paper where they have connected the dots between employee recognition, employee engagement, and their bottom line. Pepsi is a great example of a wonderful culture.
My final question is this, and it concerns cash, Chester. Again, business leaders driving home are thinking, that's all well and good, but I know my staff. I can go in and give them a pat on the back. All well and good. The language they understand is money, pay rises and bonuses and so on and so forth, but there's just not as much cash around as there used to be. Does praise really work? Surely when it comes down to it, what staff want is dollars and cents or dirhams and fils in this market.
Well, as you might imagine, I get that question and that query quite a bit. Now, here's what I would say to you. Don't get your recognition strategy and building a culture confused with your compensation plans. I'm here to tell you should pay your people as much as you can, and if there are bonuses available, please give them to them. But when you make it part of your recognition strategy, you run a terrible risk of commoditizing people's efforts. How much is what I did worth? And what you'll find, Richard, is that it's never worth enough. Do you know what I mean? If I give you a $100 bonus, what's going to go through your head is, why wasn't it $200? Tie cash bonuses and raises to very specific corporate goals or company goals. And that's part of your compensation plan. But recognition is, how do people feel inside? How do I feel when I come to work? Do I feel valued? Do I feel engaged? They're two very different strategies. And when you mix the two, employees, whether they consciously realize it or not, become confused, and everything becomes commoditized. And it's a very dangerous environment, because then you end up paying for everything. And it's just really not a good way to go. Keep compensation separate from your recognition strategy. Does that ring true?
It makes all kinds of sense, Chester, and we really appreciate you sharing your views with us. We're out of time. We've got to go to the news. You've got to go and chair a conference in Toronto. We look forward to seeing you in Dubai in October at the Middle East HR Summit. But for now, Chester Elton, author of The Carrot Principle, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Delighted to be here. Thanks, Richard. Take care.